Sir TKV Desikachar is the son and successor of Acharya T Krishnamacharya. What Madhura Kavi Alvar was to Vaishnavism in the discovery of Nammalvar, Sir TKV Desikachar is for the field of yoga in letting the public know about the entire range of Acharya T Krishnamacharya's teachings. Before Sir TKV Desikachar came into the field of yoga, Acharya Krishnamacharya was a legend already, but not very well known. Especially his teaching was not very well known. His spectrum of teaching was not very well known. It was TKV Desikachar, the second son of Sri T Krishnamacharya, who really brought out the multitude of Acharya T Krishnamacharya's teachings and built bridges between the traditional teachings of Acharya T Krishnamacharya and the modern world. If today Acharya T Krishnamacharya's teachings is so well known, the most important credit goes to Sir TKV Desikachar. But Sir TKV Desikachar was not just a messenger or a postman in the field of yoga. He was a very great established yogi in his own right, and his contributions to the field of yoga are many. He was very generous with his contributions, and many of us, we use them today without even knowing that these came from Sir TKV Desikachar. One of the greatest gifts he gave to the field of yoga is the stick drawings. Most people today use stick drawings to represent asanas and pranayama. And this was conceived and created by Sir TKV Desikachar way back in the 60s and 70s, using his background in engineering, and brought it as a good way and a unique way, simple way to communicate the teachings of yoga to people so that they could write down their practices in a small piece of paper and take it back home and use it as a reference to practice. Sir TKV Desikachar is also the one who brought greater light to the field of Yoga Sutra in modern yoga circles. Of course, Yoga Sutra has remained for thousands of years, there is no doubt about it, but the modern world, the Western world, did not know much about Yoga Sutra philosophy. When yoga was practiced in the 50s and the 60s, very few people knew about Yoga Sutra philosophy. It was Sir TKV Desikachar who opened the doors of Yoga Sutra philosophy also to the public in a conference in Zinal in the early 70s. Eventually, he wrote a commentary on the Yoga Sutra as well, which became part of the legendary book, The Heart of Yoga. The Heart of Yoga is another extraordinary contribution of Sir TKV Desikachar, which in a very simple way describes the entire teaching of yoga in a very simple and crisp manner. Since being published in the 90s, this book has become one of the greatest references of yoga, irrespective of what tradition people follow. And this was Sir TKV Desikachar's greatest contribution, one of his best books he ever wrote. Sir TKV Desikachar is also the link between traditional yoga and modern medical science. He built bridges between yoga and modern science, especially medicine, inviting doctors, psychotherapists, psychoanalysis, many projects he did, so that people would understand how yoga therapy functions. Acharya T Krishnamacharya was one of the most important yoga therapists of his time, but very few people could understand what he was doing and how he was doing. And it was Sir TKV Desikachar who built these bridges to help the Western world understand how yoga as a therapy functions. So this is yet another credit to Sir TKV Desikachar. Sir TKV Desikachar also built bridges between yoga system and the Eastern system, with many of the spiritual traditions in the world. He met with the Dalai Lama, for example. He met with many different monks, the Catholic monks, the Carmelite monks, etc., to help build bridges to communicate to them that yoga is a universal tradition that can be practiced by people irrespective of their original faith. And this was very significant because at the evolution of yoga, especially in the 80s and 90s, there were some resistances where people were not so open to yoga because they thought that yoga was a cult or another religion and that they had to give up their own faith to practice yoga. Sir TKV Desikachar removed all this by engaging in wonderful conversations with all these spiritual teachers. One of the greatest contributions of Sir TKV Desikachar is also to open the doors of Vedic chanting to everybody. Prior to the 80s, very few people were allowed the practice of chanting and mantras. Women were not allowed, Western people were not allowed. All this was because of the very strict rules that were followed by the traditional Indian Brahmins. But Sir TKV Desikachar understood how important chanting and mantra was in the field of yoga, and he convinced Acharya T Krishnamacharya to open the doors of chanting to all. It is because of Sir TKV Desikachar today that mantra and chanting has become such an integral part of yoga, especially to women and to the Western audiences. Now, these are some of his very important and profound contributions, which are very practically used by people on a day-to-day basis. But there's also another important contribution that Sir TKV Desikachar has done, which is not yet known to the public, but which we are in the process of revealing to the public, which is his translation of many of the important works of Acharya T Krishnamacharya. Acharya T Krishnamacharya had a peculiar habit of using Telugu script to write Sanskrit language. This was a promise he had made to his teacher. And very few people could interpret this because for this you needed to know both Telugu language and Sanskrit language. That's easy to find relatively. But what is more important is that these are all technical manuscripts. So somebody should know not only Telugu and Sanskrit, but also the technical aspects of these texts. And that is Sir TKV Desikachar, and he has translated and transcribed many of these documents, which we are slowly in the process of archiving, interpreting, and eventual publication. So Sir TKV Desikachar has been a very silent giant in the field of yoga, and it is amazing and extraordinary that the world decided to celebrate International Yoga Day on Sir TKV Desikachar's birthday. That is the greatest respect that we can offer him, and we all have to thank him for his contributions. Namaste, Sir TKV Desikachar.